Tony Hancock, have you broken completely with the gentleman who used to live in Railway Cutting, East Cheam? You've done cabaret recently, and now you're doing a musical, despite the fact that BBC's repeating some of the cream of the Hancock half-hour television shows.
Yeah.
Do you want to break completely from this character you established?
Well, I never did, and I never can. This is all I can do, you see. I'm not a sort of, unfortunately, a Peter Sellers chameleon boy. I can go around the British Isles in dialect in about 5 lines, you know. I had sustained character all that. Well, this is me, in a sort of rather overdone way that everybody sees.
But I remember in some of the shows, the scriptwriters seem to have written in situations where you could show versatility of accent. For example, you did a Charles Lawton, I remember.
And they were very careful to keep it down to one-liners. That was the great secret of it.
Just quick sketches.
Straight in and out, they knew I'd never hold it.
Do you regret now that you broke the partnership with Galton and Simpson?
No, because we, I think, as a matter of fact, it's probably been a very good thing for all of us. After all, we worked for about 10 years together, and we mutually learned. There's a lot of conversation, there's some press reports about the writer does it all, or the comedian does it all. This is all nonsense, because really it's a thing that happens gradually. One of the main things, of course, is to share a similar sense of humour, which we did from the start. And, as I say, we worked together, and I think fairly successfully for this long time, and they knew, they suggested all sorts of things to me, and I said, I can't do that, and then they'd say, yeah, go try anyway, and I'd try. Sometimes it would come off, you see. So we threatened each other. It's a communal thing. You can't say, I mean, you cannot say a comedian's not funny without a script. Sometimes out of desperation he has to do something, you know, or that a script plays itself. This is not true.
I remember you saying not so long ago that you think bad times perhaps are essential for performers like yourself.
What they seem to be unavoidable, essential. They'll get you some way.
What did you mean that you felt they were essential for character?
I should think probably maybe for your own maturity, you know. Mm-hmm. If you can ride out, this is where resilience becomes more important than talent. That's the question. Mm-hmm. And I think if you can emerge with, you know, from that with a little more knowledge and also a pretty good rethink about what and why things went wrong. I think it happens to any artist. I mean, look at a man like Sinatra. Yes. He was flat on the floor and begged for this part. May I mention From Here to Eternity? Really begged for the part. Was paid, by his terms now, real peanuts. But now, the Empire.
Yes.
But he had a tough time.
Remember when you made what amounted to a comeback in many ways on the Palladium show? You were very warmly received. But before then, had you felt any cynicism for your public?
No, I tell you this, the most disappointing thing to me about the public, see, is to disappoint them. I mean this very sincerely, is that for people to say, oh dear, you know, it's not right, it's a terrible disappointment to me, really. But one must experiment and go on. The British public is essentially loyal to an artist, but change, oh brother, is that difficult?
I gather you're an essentially nervous performer, like most artists.
Much less now.
Much less now?
Yeah, since a couple of years ago, I think.
Why is that?
Well, I don't know. If I'm in trouble, I always believe in jumping in the deep end and say, well, go on, you've thrown everything else, throw the rest. See, unfortunately, I'm more inclined to get needled than depressed by things. I'm not needled with anybody else, but sometimes, but mainly with myself. It's so to say, all right, wait, you know. So just wait. I may be wrong again. You know.
This is your own kind of therapy.
Yes, I think there's some things that are inexplicable. There's fortunately no formula for comedy. You can't say we'll sing a song here, and I've heard this said, mind you, and I'll put a piece of pathos in there. God knows what that means. Put a bit of pathos. And a cake.
Haven't you felt, modesty aside, watching some of your shows, that there is a pathos here?
Well, This is a difficult question for me to answer, and one that I certainly wouldn't want to make any personal research into, because otherwise, Danny Kaye made a marvellous remark about this once. You know, he opened, he was very nervous, because at the Palladium he hadn't played this place before, and he knows the immense success that he had. Somebody said, "How beautifully you use your hands." He said, the next night I went on, and they were like this, they were like rigid, like hams. He said, I couldn't do anything with them. And he couldn't forget it, and they all moved like this, and it was all wrong, you see, until eventually he forgot this unfortunate compliment and went about his business normally, and of course they all started to work again.
There's a very real danger then for a performer if he becomes self-conscious.
I don't think so, but I don't think people will say to you, for instance, in a photograph session, to the face when you do so and so. I honestly don't know what they mean, because it either comes from the way you are. You should be so immersed in the thing. You don't know about faces. You don't pull faces. It either happens or it doesn't happen. If you're thinking the thing, it's method, kid. It's like a method, you know. If you're thinking the thing, it comes out. It's as simple as that. As difficult as that.
I remember not so long ago, you were setting yourself a fairly elevated reading course for enjoyment or self-instruction.
Yeah, I've set myself an elevated living course now instead.
You've dropped the book.
I don't mean elevated in terms of spending a lot of money, but yeah, well, no, occasionally.
I remember not long after reading this, I saw Hancock on the television screen, alone in his bed sitting room, trying to
Can I
read.
bend down my other camera if I go down here? Ashtray. This is one.
There we are. Meanwhile, back in the bed sitting room with Anthony Aloysius Hancock, you were reading in this episode Bertrand Russell.
Yes.
I wondered perhaps if this expressed something more than the characters.
Well, I don't know.
New, yeah.
Now, what actually happened, I think, really, was that until I was about 30, I don't think I'd ever read anything more advanced than Chick's Own or something. So I thought something should be done about this, and I became very interested in reading generally, and then probably got a bit pear-shaped about it for a bit, and a bit obscure, and eventually decided, at least from my point of view, that allying this to comedy, and to practicing comedy, should we say, that it's more important to live than to read, or preferably to do both, with the emphasis on the living.
You seem to be something of a philosopher. Do you think most comedians are?
I think so. I think they all have something to say. Some state it blatantly, some do it in different ways. I mean, I'm sure Charlie Chaplin didn't realize what social changes he was making when he did City Lights, for instance. Since it's something easy.
If a comedian, in fact, wants to make a social comment, wants to change society.
I tell you what, I feel very deeply that a comedian is very much involved in the faults of other people, faults or idiosyncrasies or eccentricities of other people, but essentially in his own, too. You can't sort of throw the stones. I mean, from what point of perfection are you speaking to make someone look ludicrous? But the odd thing is, let's take an example. The comic parson, for instance, that used to be a lot of comic parsons on English Music Hall. Tanks used to arrive on a lady's bicycle and all this sort of business and get off and deliver in this funny tone. Now, this was funny to people because it was recognizable, therefore because it is true. And it's based on truth, and I suppose you can say that in this very brilliantly new brought-up word, which I think was used some long time ago, satire. I suppose this is satire in its own way. And in what I would term a full comedian, such as Chaplin, it is all there. The broadness, the sadness, the laugh.
You've never thought of yourself consciously
Attacking it?
as a satirist?
No. You satirize yourself? Yes, I suppose. Not in the present accepted meaning of the word. You satirize pomposity in yourself and other people. I mean, the glorious thing of indignity, for instance, particularly, it depends how you're dressed for this. The gentleman with the bowler hat and the gamp and the city staff whose foot just goes off the pavement onto the, off the top of the pavement into the street. That's a good 10-second recover It takes you about 10 seconds to get any sort of smooth angle on again. Now, if it happened to a tramp, nobody would care very much, neither would he. You've got to be dressed for these things.
Is dignity made absurd?
Oh, sure.
Yes. There were elements of satire, of course, in the cabaret show you did at the Talk of the Town fairly recently. How did you find, this is a big change for you, now, working to a nightclub audience, I would assume a sophisticated and slightly demanding audience that paid money and that had lots to drink. Did you find them difficult?
No, at no time. As a matter of fact, in the end, I used to encourage them to have a go.
To have a go?
If they wanted to, yes, because, you know, this floor comes up and the great announcements and everything go, but you're right amongst people. Instead of having the barrier of footlights and orchestra before you reach the first row of the stalls, you know, and you can see them. And I found it a much more satisfactory way than playing in a variety theatre. I really did.
You said earlier on...
It's only, actually, may I come back to that? It really is a full cycle. It's a form of music hall. Because now it's dark blue suits, smoked salmon, and before it was cheese sandwiches and flat hats. There's no difference, really, because people look different, a little more affluent in our affluent society.
It's music hall dressed up.
Really?
I was saying, you said earlier that you didn't see yourself as being particularly versatile, and you seem to be stretching your talents in all directions at the moment. You're about to do a musical called Noah.
Yes. Yes.
Had you always wanted to do a musical?
Well, this, well, no, I'll tell you what, not really, but this came to me, it was adapted from, I'm afraid I don't know the gentleman who wrote the original, by Alan and Ray, and they sent it to me about a year and a half ago, and I was very much against long runs. But I think this is a personal change. This I don't mind. I want to go on with Noah till the end, you know, and if they want to make a film of it, I want to be in the film, and so on.
I'm told you're taking singing lessons.
That's right. I haven't started yet, but I'll tell you there won't be a pane of glass safe in St. John's Wood from about next Friday on.
Is this intended to be a once, or do you see yourself perhaps?
No, I tell you what we felt is this, you know, wonderful Rex Harrison delivery. Well, I think only he can do that. He did it beautifully. He never really sang at all, did he?
No, chanted.
Just which is most effective. But they all feel, and I feel, I have it's not a very melodious voice, you know, not even in the bathroom, it doesn't give you much. But I have a good sense of pitch, I think, and it's fairly strong, and if they feel that if I can actually really carry the role properly, the alternative is the sort of Harrison method or an attempt at it. But if I really can do that, it would have a certain surprise element which would be valuable. And I agree. So it's the scales for me from now on.
How do you feel, Tony, these days about the press, the show business press? How do you think they've treated you?
Well, I think pretty well on the whole, you know. Shall we say, it's rather difficult. If you come out of, let's say, a television show at a peak, the one that follows that, you really have got to perform a minor miracle for them to go. They really expect it, and there's no malice. They have a right to say what they feel. This I don't regret. The worst criticism I ever had in my life was a paper seller. I used to go and pick the papers up from him in the morning, and he was always marvellous. He was a great fan, you see. And we did one show, and we thought it was a little, not bad. And he was always...
But not good.
Fair. And I went round to him, and he's so enthusiastic about everything all the time, and he just gave me the papers, and he didn't say anything, he just took the money, and he looked at me and he said, "What happened last night, then?" Now, this is the worst sort of criticism, because I knew that nobody could have been more for me than him, and if he didn't like it, then things had collapsed.
This worries you?
Oh,
you had a reputation, or perhaps the newspapers gave it to you once, of being a compulsive worrier. Were you, and are you still?
Compulsive worrier? No, I think that at the beginning, we tried to get, by we, I mean the people directing, writing, tried to get the show as perfect as it could be within a week. It's a very short time to get a good hour of comedy. I think anybody who finds, I think television is the toughest medium of all. One would always like 10 days instead of 7. Even that would be something. I mean, in Hollywood, for instance, they get into the set on Monday for transmission on Thursday, so they've been working in the set all the time. It's an immense help.
Yeah. So the stress of television, does this still trouble you?
No, not anymore. But of course, it's the same as people say on a film set. There's no excitement. Of course it is when they say, all right, bring the doors down, and everything goes down, everything gets quiet, the sound, right, things. Then some gentleman of 17 with all the pimples goes crash in front of your face like this. Please don't do that. And then it's first action, and it's all there, and down and finished, and print, and you think, what happened? What went on? You know, that's the bloke. He really bothers me.
Yeah. Man with the guillotine.
Yeah, oh.
Would you like to do Hancock again for television?
Well, I am it, you see. Perhaps it's a little extended to what I really am, but not very much. I'd have to do some more television, actually. Going out to California to do a pilot for the States. They've seen, I did a weird audition. I took 4 hours in Cannes and went to America and said, there they are, tapes, you see. If you don't like them, have a look at them. If you don't like me, don't like them, show them to me. I'll start again. If you don't like them, just tell me the way to the airport and I'll take them home again. And I did this at my own expense about 2 or 3 times, and finally it came off, you know. They particularly went for a thing like the blood donor. I don't know whether you ever saw
Yes, I did.
that.
Yes.
Which is a fairly gruesome but nevertheless international subject.
Yes.
And that was the one that really sold it.
They didn't find the humour too national.
Well, no, you see, apart from that, by this time they have been Beatleized completely.
Of course.
I never thought that I would ever ride along in Hollywood hearing, Mrs. Brown, you've got a lovely daughter.
But
you know, we're outside. They used to say to us, they say, why can't you take English television? They say, honestly, in the Middle West, they just don't understand you. So I can hardly understand you. I mean, we were just talking like this. So that was their big thing. Anyway, the 4 boys went over there, and all of a sudden, Liverpool's the big deal, you see, and there's been a tremendous breakthrough for English people.
What's
generally
is best.
Yes. True to the earth.
Do you have a major regret about your life or about your career?
I don't think so. Not at all, no. I think you just, just like life, you play by ear, and you have no choice anyway.
This is a bit of a chestnut, this question, the last one. We're told that most comedians are frustrated tragedians. Did you ever want to play Hamlet?
No, I did not, and neither have I ever known any comedian who ever did, but we seem to be the sort of poor relatives in this game. This annoys me. It's about time somebody asked some of our theatrical knights if they'd like to stand up in front of a front cloth with a Belisha beacon and a big store behind, and if they'd like to do 45 minutes on their own of material written by themselves.
It's a question I'll bear in mind. Tony Hancock, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.